സമ്പദ് വ്യവസ്ഥയുടെ നട്ടെല്ലായി വർത്തിക്കുന്നവരാണ് തൊഴിൽദാതാക്കൾ. രാജ്യത്തിന്റെ സാമ്പത്തികവും സാമൂഹികവുമായ മേഖലകളിൽ തൊഴിൽദാതാക്കളായ സ്വകാര്യ വ്യക്തികളുടെ സാന്നിധ്യം സ്തുത്യർഹമാണ്. ഇത്തരത്തിൽ രാജ്യത്തിന്റെ തൊഴിലിടങ്ങളിൽ പുതുമയുടെ വെള്ളി വെളിച്ചം വീഴ്ത്തുന്ന വ്യക്തിത്വത്തിലൂടെ ഒരു സഞ്ചാരം. വർദ്ധിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന തൊഴിലില്ലായ്മയുടെ ലോകത്ത് 9 രാജ്യങ്ങളിലായി 6 ലക്ഷത്തിലധികം വരുന്ന ജനങ്ങൾക്ക് തൊഴിൽ നൽകുന്ന ഇന്ത്യയിലെ പ്രമുഖ കമ്പനിയായ ക്വസ് കോർപ്പറേഷന്റെ അമരക്കാരനാണ് അജിത് ഐസക്. 2024 News9 ഗ്ലോബൽ സമ്മിറ്റിൽ ഗ്ലോബൽ വർക്ക് ഫോഴ്സ് ഐക്കണായി ഇദ്ദേഹം തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കപ്പെട്ടിരുന്നു. കൂടാതെ ഫോർബ്സ് മാസികയുടെ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് അവാർഡിന് നാമനിർദ്ദേശം ചെയ്യപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. സാമൂഹിക സേവന രംഗത്തും അജിത് ഐസക്കിന്റെ വലിയ സംഭാവനകൾ നൽകുന്നുണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ തന്നെ അജിത് ഐസക് ഫൗണ്ടേഷനിലൂടെ ഒട്ടനവധി ജീവകാരുണ്യ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ നടത്തുന്നുണ്ട്. 2 ദശകത്തോളമായി മാധ്യമപ്രവർത്തന രംഗത്ത് സജീവമാണ് മനു പി ടോംസ്. മലയാള മനോരമയിൽ മാധ്യമപ്രവർത്തനം ആരംഭിച്ച മനു പിന്നീട് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് മാധ്യമ രംഗത്തേക്ക് തിരിഞ്ഞു. ഹിന്ദുസ്ഥാൻ ടൈംസ്, ഹിന്ദു ബിസിനസ് ലൈൻ എന്നിവിടങ്ങളിൽ പ്രവർത്തിച്ച ശേഷം ഇക്കണോമിക് ടൈംസിൽ സീനിയർ എഡിറ്ററായ മനു ആഴത്തിലുള്ളതും വിശകലനാത്മകവുമായ റിപ്പോർട്ടുകളിലൂടെ ശ്രദ്ധേയനായി. ഇന്റർനെറ്റ് സമ്പദ് വ്യവസ്ഥ, വെഞ്ചർ ക്യാപിറ്റൽ, സ്റ്റാർട്ടപ്പ് ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം, സ്റ്റാർട്ടപ്പ് ധനസമാഹരണം എന്നീ മേഖലകളിൽ പ്രാവീണ്യം നേടിയിട്ടുള്ള മനു സാമ്പത്തിക പത്രപ്രവർത്തന രംഗത്തെ ശ്രദ്ധേയമായ പേരാണ്. സെഷൻ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ സ്വകാര്യ തൊഴിൽദാതാവിന് പറയാനുള്ളത്. സംഭാഷണം അജിത് ഐസക്, മനു പി ടോംസ്. സെഷനിലേക്ക് ഏവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction. So, we'll start the session now. So, today we are having amidst us someone whose singular work and contribution are central to the mission of any government, that is job creation. So, Ajit's company, Quess Corp, is the largest job provider in the country. So it's not just that it is the largest. Lakhs and lakhs of people who are otherwise unemployed or semi-skilled are brought to the formal economy with meaningful job and empowered with social security and formal jobs and career prospects. So Quess Corp, the company that Ajit Isaac founded in 2007, right? Yeah. 2007 has emerged the largest private sector employer in India, deploying over 6 lakh people across various industries. In the process, Quess Corp has become the largest staffing company in India, twice as large as the nearest competitor. And Quess Corp has got nearly, this year set to cross 20,000 crore revenue and already over 10,000 crore market cap. A little bit about Ajit, the founder. So having done his masters in personal management from Madras University, Ajit started his career as an HR manager in 1990. He rose up the ranks pretty quickly. In 10 years, he became the country head of an international staffing company and managing their entire operations in the country. So that's where I believe Ajit discovered the entrepreneur within himself. So, and then he founded Quess Corp, and over the years, Quess Corp and Ajit have had many national and international laurels. Quess is one of the top 50 staffing companies in the world, and Ajit is one of the top 50 philanthropists in the country. So, thank you for joining us, and it's an honor to have you here amidst us. And first of all, congratulations for making it to the list of India's top self-made entrepreneurs list that came out last week. So I'll sorry. So my first question is about. So you became an entrepreneur. You started this company, which is now 10,000 crore revenue. Sorry, 10,000 crore market cap, 20,000 crore, revenue. But when you look at the top entrepreneurs in the country, other than the sort of the companies which are inherited business, if you look at, the founders are mostly from IITs and IIMs. So you did not study in an IIT or IIM. You are from a completely different background. You started off as an HR manager, and then so how did you actually sort of break the mold and reach this level of entrepreneurial success?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me here and to interact and talk about these things. First, there's nobody in my family who was an entrepreneur. So I was not trained by looking at somebody or seeing somebody to become an entrepreneur. Your college doesn't teach you to become an entrepreneur. So it's not that you take to it through education. But you get methods and systems through the college that you go through. So if you go to a management institute, you learn processes, systems, and critical thinking through which you analyze and solve for problems. And that, in a sense, sets you up to become an entrepreneur. Well, if you don't have that option, then you have to learn for yourself. You have to learn on the job. You have to learn through life experiences. You have to look for mentors. You have to see how other people have succeeded in the same situations of life. So that's what I did. I was fortunate in two things. One is I got to work with great entrepreneurs. In my first job, I was working with second job. I was working with the SR Group with Shashi Ruya and Ravi Ruya, two of India's invertebrate risk takers. They built large projects. They had a great risk-taking ability. They ran into issues at a later point of time due to project financing and stretching themselves and the size of debt that they took. But otherwise, they built world-scale projects. And I got to see close up in front how they built these projects. So I got to see how risk-taking as a model was constructed by them. After that, I joined IDFC, and it's very early stages, and got to work with Deepak Parekh, who is the chairman. And Deepak Parekh is an institution builder. So he works like a professional manager, but with a very extremely high risk-taking ability, calculated risk-taking ability. He's built many institutions. HDFC Mutual Fund, HDFC itself, HDFC Bank, then there's an NBFC that will go public now. So the range of institutions that he's built all put together, the market cap will be greater than Citibank's. So I got to see two people like this, And that reinforced my thinking about the impact that entrepreneurs can make, employment they can create, decisions that they take that cause economic success that leads to other things. And that prompted me to look at entrepreneurship. And then towards 99-2000 was when the first set of private equity funds were unfurling in India. There was JP Morgan, there were a couple of other funds. Then I spoke to them about a business plan that I had, they agreed to fund. So I raised my first bit of equity from JP Morgan. And that's how I became an entrepreneur. So the long story of how I became an entrepreneur is through this.
Yeah, one factor you said is like, you could see up close how, risk-taking, great set of entrepreneurs work. And that's one factor. Of course, there are many other factors. I think that's one. And if I switch track, so the other thing that I would want to ask, so 6 lakh and counting. So how it feels to be the largest job provider in the country, in the private sector?
Well, I have to confess that, being the largest in any field, whether you're making or whether you're making chairs or you're making lights or making cars, if you're the largest in the country in a particular area, it's a heady feeling. But I'm sobered by one view here in employment is India is a country where there's a very high attrition rate. So the attrition rate can be as high as 30% in a year. So with 600,000 odd people, we can lose maybe 150,000 people. So unless we recruit that many people in a year, we won't be standing where we are. So it's like a treadmill. The more you run, the more you lose, and the faster you have to run to stay where you are. So it's a bit of a sobering fact to know that you're large, but you have to do a lot more to stay where you are. And having said that, I think your ability to cause impact, your ability to create economic development, and most importantly, see society change in certain parts over a period of time. So if I watch, let's say, a community over, let's say, 20 years, and then see what employment has done to them, it's visible how houses have come up, schools have grown, and public parks are getting utilized more and more. So there's a visible physicality to employment, which I think is very endearing.
Therefore, to a large extent, this is a double bottom line business because it economically empowers quite a lot of people. So, again, so you have Kerala roots. So, but not many people are quite familiar with your Kerala root. So could you tell us about yeah.
Sure. These are roots I'm fairly proud of also. I'm originally, my parents are from, my father's from a place called Kurupampadi. It's near Perumbavoor. My mother is from a place called Muatugura. So that's where my parents are from. My wife is from Tiruvalla. She belongs to the Kovur family and she's from Tiruvalla. And otherwise we have roots in Kerala with relatives. We have, I wait for every wedding, baptism or funeral to come to Kerala and visit and meet people here. I enjoy the cultural heritage and and the conversations in Malayalam, although I'm not very good at it myself, but I'm looking forward to some opportunity when we can have some investment in Kerala and where we build something truly institutional over a period of time.
Wonderful. Okay. So again, so for Malayalis, there is one thing. We are not entrepreneurial, is what it's being spoken about. So at what stage, so of course, I asked you about, so how from a very unlikely background you became an entrepreneur. But again, so how exactly have you figured that, okay, this is my path. I'll become an entrepreneur. Because as I said, so most of us settle for salaried jobs.
So initially the decision was tough because there was, as I said, nobody in the family who has been an entrepreneur. My father was supportive but scared of failure, that this may not succeed. My mother was supportive also. I think my biggest crutch on which I could hold on to was my age. I was then 33 years of age. So, if something went wrong, I could then get back to regular professional life. So I gave it a shot. And then luck has a big role to play in professional life, in entrepreneurial life. You cannot take out the element of luck. And if you say that you can become successful entrepreneurially with all your work, it's not possible. So first we raised only a small sum of money. We raised about $200,000 of capital. That was in those days worth about maybe about a crore and a half. And that business we started off as an online job company, and we gave it to a Bangalore-based company to develop the job application and the portal. So that's why I relocated to Bangalore and came to Bangalore to stay in Bangalore from Bombay, because the tech company was based here. And then the portal would not work. If you look for a doctor in Nagpur, you'll turn up with an engineer in Tirupur, So stuff like that. So we had to recalibrate quickly, and then our cash was running out. So we quickly made this offline company where we found jobs but with an offline presence. That company did reasonably well, and then we got to temporary staffing again through an accident. I was doing an assignment for an Indian metals conglomerate in Atlanta, Georgia, to hire staff for their factory that is setting up in Toronto. And then we used the temp staffing method. So one thing led to another like this. And each event proved a little luckier than the previous one. And then, that business became relatively successful.
The other question is about you spoke about, how you began. So in the first year, I read in one of the interviews that you have given, the revenue was all of 8 crore. And now it is set to cross 20,000 crores. So 8 crore to 20,000 crore in 15 years. So what's the takeaway? So how did you actually scale this business this large?
So we, our first year, our revenue, you rightly researched and found, was 8 crores. Our audit cost in the first year was 10 lakhs. So we built processes and systems from the first year itself. We used KPMG as an auditor for year one. So we invested in using the right people, systems and process from year one. But we were, I think by nature we were ambitious. We wanted a large company, we wanted a large business, so we invested all our profits back. We never took any dividends out in the first 15 years. Our principle was to grow at about 4 times GDP growth rate. So if GDP was, let's say, growing at, let's say, 6.5%, our target was to grow by about 25-26%. And that we achieved consistently. And then in 2012, 2013, we ran a project called 1-800-5000. So I'll explain 1-800-5000. 1 stood for the first decade of our existence. That would have been 2017. 800 stood for 800 basis points of margin, gross margin that we make. And 1-800-5000 meant we want to get to 5,000 crores of revenue. So it's like a hotline number, 1-800-5000. It's good to easy to remember. And that became a cash line for us. So this was in the 2012 when our revenues are not even 800-900 crores, So it sounded very tough and ambitious. Then we set a plan for that. So I think principally in organizations, shareholders and the board have to set a goal and management has to de-risk a path and find out the way to getting to that. And that worked well for us. So in 2017, we were actually at about 5,500 crores of sales. We achieved that, which is about almost 5-6 times of what we were in 2012. Our margins also were about the same number. And then, in the first 10 years, we took 10 years to get to 1 billion. But the next billion came in about, let's say, less than 5 years' time. And then the billion after that will come, let's say, in about 3 years' time. So as you compound growth and over a larger base, it becomes a much larger journey.
You have earlier said, the most important aspect of a company is the organizational culture and which flows from the top. So what exactly is the Quess Corp's organizational culture?
So when we did our IPO in the year 2016, and one of the questions that potential investors asked in the company when we were meeting them was about what is your culture? How do you define your culture? So luckily we had good influences over time, and our management team also got around to crystallizing the culture fairly clearly in their minds early on. Fairfax was a large investor with us. Fairfax is perhaps the Berkshire Hathaway of Canada, run by a gentleman, Mr. Vatsa, who's known as the Warren Buffett of Canada. So the name Fairfax itself stands for, friendly and fair acquisitions. Fairfax. So one of the things that we internalized was to do always only friendly transactions. We would not do anything hostile. So there were 2 partners, and let's say one was having a fight with the other. We would not back one partner to buy the company out from the other guy. We never wanted litigation. Life's too short to spend in courts. So we also insisted we want only friendly transactions. Second is we all wanted to work hard, but then we wanted to have a good life too. It's not that you end up working 70 hours a week, and as is the fashion sometimes to say this nowadays. But we also wanted our people to have a good personal life. The third thing is that we abhorred politics. So if there's any politics in the company, we don't accept that. Fourth is that we like loyalty. So if somebody is loyal to us, as an employee, spends long years with us. If he gives us 10 units, we'll give him back 15 in loyalty back. So he'll also have a tough day in life. So that time we support him a lot. So these are some of the issues, and we introduced a concept of a value system that we defined as FIT, F-I-T, which is focus, integrity, and teamwork. Focus on the tasks and the metrics and the customer's requirements. Integrity is not, it's 0 or 1. It's not like he has very high integrity and he has relatively medium level. It's either 0 or 1. And teamwork, because it's a people business. So these are the things that we imbued in our culture. So it became a company that does friendly acquisitions. It had a culture of loyalty and teamwork, and it had values of integrity and a customer-facing approach in everything that it did.
Since you mentioned about Prem Vatsa, so you have said in one of the earlier interactions with the press, how you actually zeroed in on this particular investor. because you had the option of probably taking private equity funds, which could be short-term in nature. But you figured that your business would need long-term capital. And you looked around and you found this actually aligns with your long-term goals. But generally how it happens is entrepreneurs are desperate for capital and they grab the first thing that's available. But here, you have shown wisdom, you have, to wait out and to look for something that truly aligns with your goals. So how did that really evolve?
So as a starting point, we were clear about one thing. We want to create a long-term institution. We were not building to sell. So if you build an institution which is in business services, something that can sustain itself through business cycles, is sufficiently capitalized and has enough human capital as management ability in the company. So if you want to support that and have a sound balance sheet, we didn't want to have much debt. We needed long-term capital. For long-term capital, you cannot look at private equity funds. Private equity funds usually have a fund life of between, let's say, 8 to 11 years or so, depending on what type of fund and what type of LPs they've got. My previous company, where JP Morgan was invested, we were doing very well. And then the fund shifted offshore. So when they shifted offshore, they had to go raise a new fund. So they had to show exits from the older fund in order to be able to showcase them for the new fund they were raising. Since we were doing well, we were one of the first they wanted to sell. They had a large shareholder. So I had to sell then. I was maybe about 37 years away, 36, 37. I had to sell our equity at that time because the fund wanted to sell. In the second company, Quess, that we built, we also had another private equity fund, India Equity Partners. So they were also going to raise a second fund. And this time around, when they wanted to sell, I said, I don't want this to be bought by another, as a secondary sale, bought by another private equity fund, but look for long-term capital who can invest from their balance sheet and for whom the money is proprietary money, not third-party money. So there are very few people with proprietary balance sheets and the ability to, there's some banks that will be able to. There's HNIs in a family offices. Then there is private equity funds without LP participation, so founder-led. So Fairfax came bang in the middle of that. And insurance companies is another one again. So when we talked to Fairfax, I realized that they will not pay the same valuation that a private equity fund will pay, but they will stay on commonly agreed terms for a longer period of time. And that's proven to be a big boon for us, because we're not working quarter on quarter. We're not having to dress up the lady before she's got to get married. So we have the ability to look at a long-term investment horizon.
So that came from the experience of having run the first company, basically. Okay. So the other question is about the competition. So I think for the first, at least for 7 years of Quess, TeamLease was seen as probably the largest. And then you came from behind, and not just that you came from behind, you are now twice as large as TeamLease. So how did that shift happen? How did you alter the competitive landscape?
So two things happened. I think we seized market opportunities much faster than them. We got market share from them. We got market share from a lot of other people in India. Next is that we did a lot of acquisitions. We did 23 acquisitions. We took an inorganic route. So all this added up. But I think the most important thing is that an incumbent in the market is always threatened. You found this in the telecom sector when there were actually 11 operators at one point in time. There's 2.5 right now, if you include Vodafone as one. And if you look at insurance, in health insurance, you found Star that took a lot of market share. Then you found in e-commerce now, quick commerce eating away at the revenues of the general mainstream commerce companies. So always there's a new guy who will come. So we have to be in Quess now conscious that there'll be a new Quess is going to come around. So that keeps us on our toes actually.
That is in fact my next question is, are you feeling threatened, or are you feeling conscious?
Well, if I don't have butterflies in my stomach in the morning when I go to office, then it's an odd day. Because, you have to I met Sachin once and he was telling me that even towards the end of his career, he played 200 tests. But even towards his 190th test when he went out to bat, he still feel like, it's his first day. And he still got jitters inside thinking, what's the first over going to be? So, however old you become and however experienced you think you are on the job, you still have the threat of competition. So you should never allow that to go away. I think we will face competition. I think we will face competition from people who we don't know. Somebody who uses technology to connect demand and supply and then is getting better at what we're doing, unless we ourselves get very good at our tech game.
So so you have to get very good at the tech game. Yeah, okay, sure. So, going back to one of the earlier questions, so that's, you started without any entrepreneurial background and you built this first year. Of course, you built this around the time of financial crisis. And you went through a lot of uncertainties like any other company. So, but have you ever thought you would actually reach the stage where, you are 20,000 crore revenue, 11,000 crore market cap, twice as large as your nearest competitor, deploying 6 lakh people across industries, and one of the top staffing companies in the world. So did you ever think when you set out to do this, you would actually reach this kind of a position?
No, I should be honest. I never ever thought that we'll reach the scale that we've reached today. I think we have a good chance that if we continue to grow at the pace that we're doing now, in 18 months' time, we'll become the world's largest staffing company. If we continue to growing this way. But the first time that it struck me that we're building a global scale company was in 2017-18, when we acquired a company called Tata Business Support Solutions. So that was actually involved with doing a lot of the back-end work of the Tata Group, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Voltas, etc. And then about 65% of its business came from the Tata Group, rest of it from outside. It was not mainstream to them, so they decided to sell that company. Eventually we bought 100% of the company for I think about 350 crores. But it had 29,000 people. It was doing an EBITDA of approximately 55 crores or so. That company did very well for us after we bought this company. On the back of that, we went and bought another listed company in Chennai called AllDigi Technology, Allsec Technology, now called AllDigi. Then owned largely by Carlyle. Carlyle owned 40% of that. And then promoters owned about 34%. So we bought 40% from Carlyle and bought another 30% from the promoters. Then we did an open offer and bought another 4%. So we own 74% of that today. We paid then about 320 rupees a share, approximately, in the open offer. And on an average, we paid 260 rupees a share because, we bought from Carlyle, etc. That share is today about 1,000 rupees. And that entire business, which includes Tata Business Support Solutions and Allsec, is now about approximately 350 crores, and we demerged that into a separate company. After we completed this is when it started striking me that, this is going to be a global scale company. Because then we suddenly had the second largest BPO in India, the largest payroll service company, the largest professional service company, and the largest general staffing company. And then we also integrated to make, we bought the back end of the Manipal group. So hospitals and education institutions. So with that, we got facilities management. And then we bought a company called Hoffen Cons, which did industrial solutions. So it's a company that maintains power plants, steel plants, large industrial equipment. So we got segments, about let's say 5-6 segments, all of which we became leaders in the country. And then it dawned on us that this is now becoming an enterprise of scale.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So outside business, 2 things that made headlines. One is, of course, the costliest real estate in Bangalore that you have bought. The other is, of course, your philanthropic activities. You have funded 2 academic chairs, one in IASC Bangalore and the other is Ashoka University. Maybe there will be other academic contributions too. So and you are again one of the top philanthropists in the country. So what's your philosophy? So what drives your philanthropic initiatives?
So this is I think also partially a bit of a philosophical question, what drives certain things you do. I read a story once about a gentleman who made a bit of money and built a successful business. And he said that, I don't want to be buried and known as a rich man. He wanted to be known for other things that he did. And I thought that made a lot of sense. What is the point in building a lot of capital if you can't create impact out of it? I think money should serve three things. Money first is that it should allow you to do what you want to do. Whatever you want to do, it should allow you to do that. After that, money is useless because you have 24 hours a day. You can sleep for a part of it, and when you are up and active, you can do a few things. So you should be able to fund what you want to do. The second is, I think you should be able to create a corpus which will create more money for you, so that you have an ability to generate income. The third is, I think you must give it away for impact. Otherwise, money sitting in the bank is useless. You should give it away for impact. So this giving process started since 2017 or 18 or so. When we did our first big project, we're building a hospital with CMC Velo. CMC Velo built a large hospital about 15 kilometers away from where they are right now, in a place called Kanigapuram, which does not have a pediatric center. So we talked, and then they were keen to set up a multi-specialty pediatric hospital, about 450 beds, about a 400 crore project. I got Fairfax also involved from Canada. And then Quess also put in some CSR money and from our family foundation. And then the project will be up and running in another 18 months' time. And then COVID happened in 2020. So COVID really exposed the frailties of our public health infrastructure, the insufficiency of policy-making talent, and also the lack of capacity in administration to move expediently in a public health crisis. So I was thinking that we should not whine about this, but do something, not just say that nothing's happening. And that's when IISc came and spoke to me. IISc, remember, is India's #1 science institute. They came and spoke to me about their desire to set up a hospital, which I was entirely not agreeable to, because we were setting up our own hospital at Vellore. So I told them that instead, if you are willing to consider the building of a public health institute, we will be supportive. Because they have core engineering, pure sciences, clinical inputs from the hospital, and big data capability, because they're a science institute. And in epidemiology and in epidemiological research, big data is a big deal. So they're all of this. So they came back 1 year later. They took time and came back with a proposal about how to set up a public health institute. And then we agreed to fund them. So we've now set up what they're calling as the Isaac Center for Public Policy, for Public Health, and including other things, they're researching new strains of TB, bacteria that is affecting ICU care patients, and also longitudinal surveys of diabetes, etc. So it's fairly long-term stuff that they're doing.
So you partly preempted my next question, in fact. So I was asking about, Quess is now nearly 11,000 crore market cap, and you hold 23% of the stake, if I'm not wrong. So that makes you worth about 2,500 crore. So what money means to you? It's a very personal question, I know, but still curious to know what money means for you.
Well, the first thing is that number is a paper number. It moves up and down every day, so it's relatively meaningless. But I think money is useful to the extent that it allows you to do what you want to do. Other than that, it's meaningless. So, it's sometimes an indication of how you spend your time. It's another indication of your commercial instincts. But I think it's more an indication or it's more a measure and a reminder to you of what impact you can actually cause if you use it sensibly. So that's really how I look at it.
So coming back to Quess, so of course, so you have crossed many milestones, like that we said, so 10,000 crore market cap, 20,000 crore revenue. So what is the next milestone for you? 6 lakh employment. So what are the next milestones that you have set for yourself?
So, when I sold my first company, People One Consulting, we were 35,000 people, and I sold it to Adecco, which is the world's largest HR solutions company, and they were 710,000 people, 710,000. That was in 2004. I completed the transaction by 2008, 7, before I founded Quess. Today, Adecco is the world's largest company, is at 470,000, and we are at 630, 620 right now. So the roles sort of have reversed in terms of the pecking order. So I think we have a genuinely good opportunity to aim to become the largest staffing company. Our staffing business is about 500,000 people. So we are the third largest now. I think in about 6 to 12 months time, we can become the largest staffing company. But in the world, by number of headcount, we have our currency is rupees, so we are depreciated. So there's an inability to count yourself on the revenue. So our next attempt should be, so on revenue we're in the 40s, right, in the mid 40s right now. Our next step should be, how do we manage to get the staffing company to rank alongside the biggies in revenues too? So that will mean having some international operations. We're looking at that. That's one. The second goal is, in our tech business, we want to demerge the tech business. The process is underway right now. We hope to complete the process by about March or April or so. Our tech business today is about $350 million. So we are running right now what is known as Project Atlas, along with BCG, to scale the business from 350 million to $1 billion in about 5 years' time. So we think that we have a good shot at doing it, and hopefully we'll get to doing that. The third business is a fledgling business. It's called Blue Spring, and that has all the asset maintenance business. So that has sales of about 3,300 crores or so. It does an EBITDA of approximately about 200 odd crores right now. It manages about, let's say, 360 million square feet of space, makes about approximately 200,000 meals a day in the food business that we have there. So our first target is to make the food business in there about 1,000 crores in size. We are right now about 350 to 400 crores. So that will take some doing. And overall in Blue Spring to make it about $1 billion in size. So you'll see that all three businesses are separately $1 billion each in size.
Two questions that came up just now, so I hope you wouldn't mind. One is, given it's about employment. So here there is a looming threat of AI over employment. So what's your point of view on that? So would it affect the staffing industry in any ways?
That's a great question. AI will affect employment in many ways. But I think the effect of AI is overstated in the short term and underestimated in the long term. How much it will do for us and impact us in the long term is not very much known, because it's only in the last 2 years we've started seeing the full capability of AI. Today you can do coding with ChatGPT, which is significant. You don't have to sit and write code by the many lines anymore. So I'm sure it will affect. But I think the way to see this is like an example in the airline industry, where there were porters carrying baggage from aircraft into belts, to the conveyor belts. So it was a manual exercise, all over manual. So there were maybe 50,000 porters across airports worldwide, moving baggage from aircraft into belts. Today there's no porter left. The porter has been replaced by computerized operations, which automatically move stuff from the aircraft, comes down a belt into a truck. The truck is driven into a terminal, and from there it's tagged, and then it reads the tag and it goes out. So what has happened? The porters have effectively been replaced by coders. The coders are sitting with Siemens and with these Italian and Spanish companies writing the code, which is effectively deciphering baggage to go to a right place and to ensure Manu's baggage doesn't get mixed up with mine. So the same thing will happen with technology as it's changing operations worldwide. AI will replace some people lose jobs because repetitive jobs will get done by AI. See, the same thing happened when bots were introduced about 5 years ago. When bots were introduced in our own company, we process payroll for 600,000 people. So there are repetitive tasks that PF does not change every month. ESI does not change every month. Timesheets, the format of it does not change every month. So we got all of them automated with bots. So if we had 100 people doing payroll before, that came down to 50 because bots came in. And what did we do with the 50? 50 of them were replaced by about 10 or 15 people who were managing the bots. So effectively, our headcount came down from 100 to maybe 70. We saved 30 people. But 30 people we redeployed other places. But those 30 people have to learn new jobs, have to reskill themselves. So while we'll train them, they also have to take the effort. So it's imperative, therefore, that every employee also looks at his...
Yeah, so reskilling is the key.
Reskilling is the key.
Okay. See, the other question is again slightly personal and organizational. So you have run from the front for a very long time. And now you moved on from the position of CEO to the executive chairman. What really, you could have probably continued like CEO, right? So what really made that decision?
That's a good question. I'm not often asked that question. So I think there were two things that drove the decision. First one was that I'm hitting 58 this year in 2025. The retirement age in our company is 58. So I did not want to flout it myself. And if I have to move on, I have to create a glide path for somebody else to move in. So Guru Prasad, who's now our CEO, joined me 20 years ago. He's worked with me for so long. So I want to create a 2-year time span for him to do the job. So he got into the job right now. And then we had the demerger in our mind for some time. So it gives me more time to focus on the younger companies group. Staffing companies mature, will go on to becoming a world scale company. Guru Prasad can run it. But the tech business and Blue Spring, which is a asset maintenance business, needs more help. So it allows me to focus on that while remaining a non-executive chairman for the group.
So the last question, that's when are you overtaking Indian Railways?
It's a tough one. They have 1.2 million people working. So exactly 2 times our size. So, well, it's not an express thought in our head right now. It's not like Vande Bharat running in our head right now. But if it happens at some point in time, it's a bonus. I also think that the railways will downsize a bit to get more productive. So that may help our race to get faster there. But it could take us maybe about 5 years to get to that point.
So open for the audience for questions.
Good evening, Ajit. Krishna Kumar, farmer and investor. Now, for a new graduate to get a job, what would be the best combination? I'm going to give you options. English or Hindi, BCom or BTech. He wants to get a job tomorrow. Which is the best combination?
English and BTech.
Good evening, Ajit Isaac. I would like to ask you a question that as you are a tech-based businessman, do you have any plan for always the rich are becoming more rich, and then you are doing for the almost rich people? Do you have any plan for the downtrodden, the poor people of Kerala, or as I am coming from Wayanad district? Do you have any plan for the so-called poor people in our place?
For employment? In the area of employment?
Yeah, in the area of employment. And as he has asked the question, what kind of courses the people in this area can take for their development?
So first, I'll tell you about what we're doing in poorer segments of society to help future generations find jobs. We have a foundation in Quess. We are working with about 75,000 children now in various government schools to train them in better infrastructure facilities. Like we rebuild schools, train teachers, give them teaching aids, and measure the progress of every school. So on an average, we found that when we start working with the school, there is usually about 150 to 160 children. Now, over a period of 7 or 8 years, we've now reached about, let's say, 200 to 220 children per school. So attendance and intake in these schools have gone up. Second is, now we are finding the first batches of doctors, engineers being produced from these schools. So that's one thing at a grassroots level we're doing. The second thing we're doing is, we're conducting job fairs in aspirational districts in association with the establishment. So it's usually the IAS officers will call us up, collectors, or let's say MLAs will call us up and say, can you help specific areas? So then we conduct job fairs in those places, and then sometimes we have 30 vacancies and some 30,000 people will turn up. It's a difficult situation sometimes, but that's really the situation as it is. So we enable the meeting of supply and demand, which is really our job. We are a market maker. We connect demand and supply of labor and supply of labor to jobs. That's the second thing we do. The third is we conduct skill training programs in association with the government and various government schemes. These programs, we get jobs for a large variety of people, for a large number of people who take these training programs. We get jobs for them at the end of that program. So we do this in 3 steps, therefore. At the school level, training level, and in demand and supply, the connection of demand and supply.
Sir, I would like to ask you next question. So one of the main job that Quess Corp does is you connect talent with businesses. How has recession affected this work?
So, good question. So, when COVID happened, we were about 380,000 people. We lost 80,000 people. Jobs, because some migrants went back to their hometowns and some companies laid off people. So, we lost 80,000 people. India has since then been consistently growing at about 6%. Last quarter was 5.4%, but otherwise at about 5.5% to 6%. So we have not seen a recession yet. But having said that, the last quarter was, I think, an under-reviewed quarter in many parts of the economy. On an average, we have usually about 30,000 open jobs at any point of time at Quess. For the first time in many, many quarters, I found that our open position level had dropped to about 20,000 people. So that's clearly an indication that the number of jobs in the market had come down. I also found that some of our larger clients were not recruiting as much as they did in the past. So that also means that the big clients are not growing.
Sir, so actually you have a lot of employees working under you. So what according to you is an ideal employee? What do you actually look for in an employee?
An ideal employee is one who will ask bold questions like you, who can stand up and speak their mind. But having said that, I think an ideal employee first has to understand the job clearly, has to know what is your job. Like if you're a sales guy, you have to know that I have to sell, let's say, 10 cups a month. You have to know that and deliver, and you have to plan your time, your effort level, sequentially, day by day, to ensure that the 10 cups are sold. So in order to sell 10 cups in a month, you have 4 weeks in a month. You have to sell at least 2.5 cups in a week. So how do you sell 2.5? So if you leave it all to the last week, you will not do it. So you have to plan that out. You have to ask for resources. You have to think how many resources you need for this. Where do you get these resources from? What can your boss do for you? If you have colleagues or subordinates to work for you, how do you motivate them to get it? So you have to think through this, how to get to that goal and plan for that. That is, I think, the first quality that an ideal employee should have. The second one is, you look for teamwork, integrity, loyalty, some of the softer aspects. And the third thing is that every company has aspiration for growth. So you also want employees who can take the next level of the job. So what potential do they have? You want they call high pot, high potential employees. So if you have a performing employee doing your target of 10 cups a month, you have an employee who's got high potential to get to the next job and who's got also got the soft elements. That I think is a great combination.
Good evening, sir. In related to this, just I'm asking you, do you prefer, or do your company prefer the multitasking employees? That would be a criteria for the appraisal and all?
It is position related. For example, if you're processing payroll in our backend, there's no need for multitasking. In fact, if you're multitasking, you'll mess it up. You have to do the same thing every month, 12 months of the year, every year. So there's no need for multitasking. Whereas if you're, let's say, doing project work, you're helping, let's say, create a new project. You have to multitask because you have to do a financial model. You have to work with the sales team to create a sales plan. You have to work with somebody else, and you have to pull everything together. So it's related to the job you've got. I personally prefer people who have some multitasking skills, in the sense they seem to be able to see a little bit more of life than everybody else can, and they're able to do a little bit more, but it's not compulsory. So if you're not a multitasker, don't worry.
Okay, thank you. Actually, that was not my question. When it came, I just asked, okay, you mentioned that you were an employee and later you turned to an entrepreneur. So how do you differentiate the path between an employee and an entrepreneur?
On employee now.
Because that is a salaried one position once you handle, and another one is a money raising one, right?
See, as an employee, you only work for your boss and your wife. That is fixed. But as an entrepreneur, you work for yourself. So when you work for yourself, sometimes you don't make much money. You have to be prepared. It's a risk you're taking. But when you make money, you make serious money. It's a risk-return relationship. But as an employee, you're bound by rules. There is a certain framework, and you have to stay with that.
Good evening, sir. Myself, Nimal. I'm doing my graduation in Masters in Physics. So, and as a part of my MSc curriculum, we are doing a research work. So mostly my research work is in application level, solar cells. I'm doing research in the solar cells. So after we are doing the same thing as the engineers doing, and finally doing all these things, when we go to for a job in the industries, the opportunity of an MSc Physics is very less. They all want BTech people or engineering people. Why this is? We are doing same thing as what the engineers are doing. We are researching on for the application, but still industries don't want us. Can you please tell why we are keeping away from these industries? They are saying you guys are for PhD or TC. Why we are not for industries?
Why didn't you take MTech?
Because I'm more interested in physics, but still we are doing the same things what MTech people are doing.
See, the
application level.
The point is, organizations have criterion and qualifications. For this job, they will take an MTech with experience, with etc. etc. If an MSc Physics does not fit under the qualification, you will not, unfortunately, qualify to be recruited. That's the one thing. Second is, naturally, the evolution of such application engineering jobs is from research labs and from MTech related, technology related institutions. Unlikely to go find people like you. I mean, nobody's taking away the credit for what you're doing, but you're a rare non-mainstream skill set. So you have to take that extra effort to convince somebody as to why what you're doing is equal to what an MTech does, and how they can maybe use another rule to employ you than looking at the standard qualification set.
That's what we are trying for. We are equal to the MTech people.
So we had a wonderful conversation and a very engaging audience session as well. So we have come to an end of this session. Thank you, Ajit, for an engaging conversation.